Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm David Kerr from Lansing in Michigan, and these are your latest news headlines from around the world. Pope Francis has issued a challenge to the clergy and lay faithful of the Catholic Church to follow St. Peter and St. Paul in finding the joy of proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Holy Father made his comments during his Holy Mass upon the feast of St. Peter and Paul at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome on Thursday. He reminded those present that the Church is called to grow by following the Lord constantly and preaching his good news. He invited both clergy and lay faithful to bring Jesus everywhere, especially where poverty, decay and marginalisation are deeply rooted. Meanwhile, the Pope's special envoy to Ukraine has met with the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi met Russian Patriarch Kirill in Moscow on Thursday. Cardinal Zuppi was on a 3-day mission to the Russian capital on behalf of Pope Francis in an attempt to find a just peace between Russia and Ukraine. The papal envoy also met with Russia's Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights to discuss the unlawful deportation of over 19,000 children from Ukraine to Russia. That's a claim that Russia denies. The US Supreme Court has ruled that university admissions policies based upon race are unconstitutional. The 9 justices were asked to decide upon the legality of the admissions rules at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina. The lawsuit against Harvard had been brought by a group of Asian American students who claimed that the university's admission policy discriminated against them by downplaying their academic achievement and high test scores. In his majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts drew a direct line from the landmark case of 1954, Brown versus Board of Education, which ended segregation in education, saying, quote, "Eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it." The vote among the 9 justices was 6-3. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favour of a Christian postal worker who had been compelled to work on Sundays. Pennsylvania mailman Gerald Groff had asked the court to decide whether the US Postal Service could require him to deliver Amazon packages on a Sunday, which for Christians is the Lord's Day and a day of rest. Mr. Groff was represented by the First Liberty Institute, a legal firm specialising in religious rights cases. They described the ruling by the Supreme Court as a landmark victory for workers across the United States. The bishops of Nigeria have criticised a proposed new law seeking to regulate Christian education in the African country, describing it as unnecessary and impracticable. The proposed legislation seeks to create a National Council for Christian Education, which will design, authorise and oversee the curriculum for all levels of Christian education. In response, the bishops point out that such a body would infringe upon the rights of various Christian denominations to provide instruction according to their respective doctrines. They also suggest it is incompatible with the secular nature of the country's constitution. Meanwhile, the administration of President Joe Biden has notified the US Congress that, as far as it is concerned, Ethiopia is no longer engaging in a pattern of gross violations of human rights. That declaration by the White House now lifts a legal designation that will pave the way for the US and other countries to resume providing economic aid to the East African country. The world is failing the children of Haiti, so warns the head of the United Nations Children's Fund, also known as UNICEF. The organisation's executive director, Catherine Russell, says that the institutions and services that Haitian children rely upon are barely functional, while armed groups hold sway over some of the country's most productive agricultural regions and much of the capital city of Port-au-Prince. So that situation, she says, is making both food supply and education in Haiti very difficult to provide. At present, nearly half of Haiti's 5.2 million population require humanitarian aid. That includes approximately 3 million children. Dutch physicians are euthanizing people with autism and other intellectual disabilities. That is according to a new report by Kingston University in England. Their report finds that nearly 40 people identified as autistic or intellectually disabled were legally euthanized in the Netherlands between 2012 and 2021. That includes 5 people younger than the age of 30 who were killed at their own request after citing autism as the sole or a major reason for their decision to end their lives. The Netherlands was the first country in the world to legalize euthanasia in 2002. Meanwhile, one of Australia's most senior Catholic figures is warning against the dangers of assisted suicide being legalised by the government of the Australian Capital Territory, which includes the nation's capital city of Canberra. Archbishop Anthony Fisher of Sydney says he has many concerns, including the fact that the proposed legislation will apply to those aged 14 and upwards. Why, asks Archbishop Fisher, should those who are too young to drive or vote be allowed to make such end-of-life decisions? Barclays Bank has agreed to pay compensation and legal costs to a Christian charity after the bank closed the organisation's accounts. It was in 2020 that Barclays shuttered the accounts of the Core Issues Trust and the International Federation for Therapeutic and Counselling Choice. The Northern Ireland-based organisation offers counselling to people who are same-sex attracted or who have gender dysphoria. The Christian charity then sued the bank for unlawful discrimination. That case was due to be heard this week by the High Court in London, but instead Barclays offered a settlement of £21,500 in compensation, plus legal costs, which the Christian charity accepted. Finally, the public recitation of the Holy Rosary by men across Ireland seems to be catching on, inspired by the popularity of a similar initiative in Poland. Men's Rosary Ireland campaign was founded in 2021. The first Irish Men's Rosary rally took place in the city of Derry, with approximately 80 men participating. Since then, it has spread to 21 other locations. The Rosary rallies are held on the first Saturday of each month. Ave Maria. Well, that's your latest headlines for now. Do join us for more tomorrow. You can also join us at swnews.org for news updates. Shalom.